First thing I have to do is probably the hardest thing that I'm going to have to do, and that is removing this differential cover right here. Alright, so I got the cover off, and it wasn't all that hard. A couple of the bolts were a little stubborn, but not bad. And now, next step is to remove the gears out of there. Okay, it's day 2 of the project here. Last night I took the differential cover off down there, and as I'm a knucklehead, I thought that's all I had to do and I'd pull the gears right out. Well, no, you have to pull the axles out first. Well, I've never pulled the axles out of a car, for crying out loud. But I watched a little YouTube video, showed me how to do it. So I start over here on the driver's side, and you pull the brakes all apart, which I've never done. And you pull the hub thing off, which I've never done. I had to go to the store twice. Once to buy a... No, just once. To buy a big socket to fit on the hub nut on the end. And some other stuff. So you take that all apart, and then you pull the axle right out of here. You just pull it out. Well, then I went over to the other side, and I thought, okay, that was easy enough. Now I'll do the other side. Moved over to the other side to pull this axle off. Here's the axle. But the thing is, I couldn't get the lug nuts off. They were on so tight. I was using my normal lug wrench. I was standing on it and bouncing, and I still couldn't get the nuts to turn. So I went to the store and I bought a 1/2-inch, foot and a half long breaker bar, and brought back, and I got 4 out of the 5 lug nuts off. The 5th one was a locking lug nut, and I couldn't get it up. I couldn't get it loose. I tried everything. I drove all the way to Plover to borrow a stronger impact wrench from Barry. Drove all the way back and managed to do nothing except strip the locking lug nut. I'm looking for locking lug nut to show you what they look like. They have this special head, looks like that, a special tool that fits in there. Well, I stripped the tool trying to get one of these off. Long story short, today after work I went and bought a 20mm 12-point socket, and I pounded it onto the end of that lug nut with a hammer. So anyhow, once I got the other axle off, the gears popped right out, just fell right out. And then you pound out some pins, and then you take that thing off, and then you pound out another pin, and then you turn the gears that are all in here, and they fall right out. These are the stock gears. You got 2 of these that go one way, you got 2 of these that go the other way, and they fit together like so, and they turn, and that's your differential. Well, this is my replacement set of locking differential gear things that go like this, and then they go like that, and then these go on the other side like that, and then they go together like that, and then a spring goes in that little slot like that, and then that goes in there, or that goes in there first, blah blah blah. And then what happens is, when there's power being delivered to this, when you're in 4-wheel drive, these locking doodads force both axles to turn at the same rate. The old gears, if one tire was off the ground, it would just spin and the other tire would not have any power. So this makes them both spin at the same time. In other words, this really makes it... Anyway, never mind. So there we go. Now I put this stuff together, and I put it back in the Jeep. Well, I got this back together, and this part of the project honestly took about 15 minutes. Took these bolts off, pulled this gear off, popped that pin out, pushed that pin out, The old gears, you turn them and they fell out. They push each other out, you know, like that. The new gears go in. Pretty simple, they fit together. You got this piece here, fits in there with this piece, and the same thing on the other side. The springs go in between. And the pin goes back in. Same thing on the other side. These go together and the spring fits in there. That's honestly all there is to it. Now I put it back in the Jeep and put the wheels and tires back on. Well, I got the passenger side put back together. It took me a while to figure out how exactly to get the brakes on the pads. Well, I figured it out. I got this side done, and I got the I did this first. I got the gears reinstalled, the new gears installed in there, and cleaned up all the old gasket material. There's the new locker in there. So tomorrow I'll put this side back together. I was going to take the time to paint everything in there, but I decided I've spent enough time on this project already. Messing with that stuck lug nut yesterday took a lot of energy out of me. Plus I still have to remove the locking lug nuts on the rear tires and the spare tire using the same method I did before by pounding a socket on there, because I no longer have a key thing to remove them with. It's ruined. So I gotta get that one out of there somehow. Put this in a vise and whack it with a hammer, get that out of there, and remove the other three. Fortunately, I had one removed already before I stripped the tool. That's it for tonight. Okay, it's been a long couple of days. My project was actually very easy. It was a very easy project, but I ran into two snags. One was the lug nut that wouldn't come off, which resulted in the lug nut locking tool getting stripped, which then meant all the lug nuts, all the locking lug nuts, one on each wheel, had to be removed the hard way, the really hard way. But the actual project of installing the new locking differential went very well. In fact, putting the differential in took like 15 minutes. The real time was, you know, removing the wheels and everything. But I want to just show a few things on the Jeep that are new. Now that I have lockers installed, they sent me a pair of decals, so I put those on there. And you know, I had the Wrangler words on the side in gray, and since I decided that I really want to have turquoise on the Jeep, I bought a second set of the identical Wrangler decals in turquoise, and I put them over the top of the gray ones and offset them ever so slightly, so you can see kind of that it looks like a gray shadow. See? So on both sides I offset the turquoise over the top of the gray, but left the gray showing. So it's like a gray shadow. I guess I like it. Another thing I did today was I took the front and back bumper filler pieces off, and I sprayed them with I cleaned them, sprayed one more coat of Plasti-Dip on them, and then I sprayed them with this Plasti-Dip product called Glossifier. Plasti-Dip, when it dries, is a very flat finish, and when it gets dirty, the dirt doesn't want to come off. It kind of stains it. And it also has been known to fade over time. And this Glossifier stuff is just like a clear glossy coating that goes on that's supposed to help with that. I'm not crazy about it because it doesn't really dry smooth. It's kind of bumpy. So it's still like a matte finish, I guess, like a matte photograph, but it has this Glossifier stuff on it. anyhow, underneath here, is the new differential gears went in there, and I painted the cover turquoise to match the rest of the Jeep.